Joel Osteen publicly criticizes Donald Trump, stating, "God blesses unity, not division," and turns a faith festival into a sermon against the president. But moments later, Karoline Leavitt takes the stage, and what she says leaves the entire nation stunned. Can a wealthy pastor use God's name to conceal the truth? Or did that night illuminate the faith of millions of Americans through someone they once saw as an outsider? This clash between light and darkness will keep you riveted. The stage lights at the Faith and Freedom Summit shine down on thousands of attendees packed into the room. On the platform, Pastor Joel Osteen steps forward, his gentle smile and familiar voice ringing through the microphone. "God blesses unity, not division," he says slowly, eyes scanning the crowd. And there are those who, though called leaders, have forgotten this. The room falls silent, interrupted only by a few faint coughs. Everyone knows who he's targeting. After weeks of attacking Trump on television, Osteen now stands in the spotlight, using faith to challenge political power. The camera pans to Karoline Leavitt, the young White House spokesperson, invited as the opposing voice. She sits upright, her eyes sharp and unblinking. Osteen continues, "I pray God opens the hearts of those sowing division, so they know America needs love, not walls." A weak ripple of applause rises, then fades as Karoline stands. Her voice cuts through the microphone. "Pastor Osteen, if you truly believed in love, you wouldn't have chosen tonight to attack the president in God's house." Osteen smiles lightly, trying to maintain his gentle demeanor. "You've misunderstood. I'm only saying what God wants to hear." Karoline doesn't back down. "No, you're saying what the audience wants to hear, and you know they'll clap, even if they don't see God in their hearts." Osteen frowns. "Young lady, faith isn't for arguing," she replies, her voice sharp as a blade, "but it needs protecting from those who exploit it." Murmurs ripple through the crowd. Osteen takes a deep breath, on just reminding people that America needs unity. Karoline tilts her head, eyes locked on him. "Unity can't be built on lies. You preach from a gilded pulpit, while condemning those who dare speak the truth. You call them divisive because they don't kneel to you." Camera shutters click rapidly, flashes lighting up the room. Osteen shifts his tone, voice lowering. "I'm not against anyone. I'm only against hatred." Karoline responds slowly, coldly, "No, you're against those who don't belong to your glamorous empire. You've turned God's word into a shield for your personal brand." The words land heavily, freezing the room. Osteen forces a smile, but his lips tremble slightly. Karoline inhales, her voice echoing through the hall. "You say God blesses unity, but perhaps, Pastor, God doesn't unite with deceit." The crowd falls silent. The lights highlight two faces, one smile shattered, one gaze fearless. In that moment, America holds its breath. This is no longer a faith discussion, but the start of a public trial between true faith and faith for sale. The air in the hall thickens after Karoline's words. Osteen stands still, gripping the microphone, his lips curling into a strained smile, trying to regain his rhythm. "You've got it wrong," he says, his voice soft as a breeze. "I'm not attacking anyone. I'm just talking about love, about how America needs healing." Karoline doesn't respond, just stares straight at him, unwavering. Osteen continues, "I don't care about politics. I just want to remind people that God doesn't take sides with parties. He stands with love." He pauses, as if expecting applause, but the hall remains silent. Karoline takes the microphone, her voice low but clear. "You say you don't care about politics, yet you name the president. You say God stands with love, yet you choose to humiliate others to prove you're on his side." Osteen frowns, stepping back slightly.
"You're mixing things up."
"I'm just saying anger can't build faith." Karoline steps forward, her voice sharper, "and neither can deceit." Murmurs rise from the back rows. Osteen takes a deep breath, forcing another smile. "We don't need to accuse each other. I've spent my life talking about compassion. I'm just urging those spreading division to listen to God's voice." Karoline tilts her head slightly. "Compassion isn't a curtain to hide the truth. When you call others divisive, you're dividing the very people who believe in you." Osteen frowns. "I'm speaking out because I love America." Karoline gives a faint smile, her eyes cold. "If you truly loved it, you wouldn't sell that love as conference tickets. You wouldn't turn sermons into a brand to promote your empire." Osteen lowers the microphone, looking to the audience for allies. A few nod, others look down. "Karoline," he says slowly, "you're young. You don't understand what I carry. I don't live for myself. I live for the millions who need faith. She responds instantly. Faith doesn't need a middleman. People don't need you to find God. They need truth, not pre-written sermons sold for royalties. Osteen's voice falters. You're insulting the faith of millions who follow me, he says, trying to stay calm. Karoline doesn't blink. No, I'm protecting them from being exploited. Religion isn't a corporation, and faith isn't a product. A lone clap echoes from the back of the room. Immediately others stand, then an entire row joins in applause. Osteen looks around, his face tightening under the lights. He forces a smile. You're trying to make me the villain. Karoline responds. No, you did that when you say one thing and live another. Osteen lowers his voice. I'm just calling for peace. She cuts in, her voice no longer calm but chillingly cold. The peace you speak of is hollow, where no one dares speak the truth, where the rich buy the silence of the poor, where faith is twisted to keep a smile on your face.
Osteen freezes.
The lights reflect off his face, making his fake smile appear distorted. She continues. You say you want to heal the nation, but you can't even heal your own church. You say you want to fight hatred, but you sow doubt in those who dare defend what's right. You're not a healer. You're a divider cloaked in sugar-coated sermons. The hall falls silent. A reporter in the middle row mutters. She just tore down the wall of silence.
Osteen touches the microphone, his voice hoarse.
I think you should be careful with your words. Faith isn't a weapon. Karoline looks straight at him. I'm not using faith as a weapon. I'm just not letting you use it as a shield. The words cut like a blade.
Ian falls silent.
The microphone emitting a faint buzz from his trembling hand. She steps forward, eyes locked on him.
You know why I'm here, Ian tight.
To defend the president, but to defend the people who sent money, faith, and tears to your church. They thought you were God's man, but God doesn't stand with those who deceive in his name. A long breath echoes somewhere in the room.
Osteen looks down,
his lips pressed tight, unable to speak. She pauses for a moment, then says slowly, as if passing judgment, you talk about love, but love without truth is just decoration, and that decoration is what's killing America's faith. Silence. The cameras zoom in on their faces, one trying to hold a smile, the other standing like a blade in the light. The hall holds its breath. Someone whispers, this battle just got real. Osteen remains silent for a long moment, trying to recapture his familiar tone. He smiles faintly, speaking slowly. I understand, Karoline. You came here with fire in your heart, and I respect that. But remember, we're all God's children. You may not like how I preach, but I only want to bring faith to people. He lifts his head, voice lowering. I was there for Houston's people in their suffering. I prayed for them, day and night. Who can say I didn't stand with them? Karoline moves the microphone closer to her lips, her eyes colder than ever. Prayed, she asks, softly but sharply. When Houston was drowning, thousands lost homes and loved ones. Where were you? Their shepherd. A wave of murmurs spreads through the room. Osteen forces a smile. We couldn't open the doors. The church was flooded. She activates the large screen behind the stage. The light reveals a familiar image. Lakewood Church, massive and dry amid the floodwaters. Outside, a crowd gathers, blocked by locked doors. Her voice rings through the microphone. This is your church. 2 days after Hurricane Harvey hit. These are the people begging for shelter. And these are your staff, turning them away because the facility wasn't safe. And this, she emphasizes, is 3 days later, when the media arrived. The church doors open, the floors dry, the lights blazing. Osteen stands frozen. A few murmurs rise, and some in the front rows shake their heads. He speaks softly. You don't know the situation then. My team tried. Karoline cuts him off, her voice firm. Tried to keep your image clean, not save people. The words hit like thunder. Osteen tries to smile, but it crumbles under the lights. You don't understand, he says. I had to ensure safety. I couldn't let anyone get hurt in the church. She tilts her head, her voice lower, colder. But you could let them die on the streets. A choked gasp echoes somewhere in the room. Osteen scans the crowd, seeking a sympathetic glance, but finding none. She steps closer. You say you want to heal America, but when an entire city cried for help, You locked the doors and flew away. Do you remember this picture? On the screen, a new image appears. Osteen and his wife on a yacht in the Bahamas, beaming smiles, 2 days after the storm. The room gasps collectively, a few muttering, "Oh my God." Osteen pales, stammering, That was a pre-planned trip, and you didn't cancel it while the city was drowning." Karoline interrupts. "You say God blesses unity, but you only united with your own comfort." She pauses, looking straight at him, her eyes not angry, but disappointed. "God doesn't need you to represent him. He needs compassion, but your compassion got stuck in your wallet." Osteen grips the microphone tightly, his voice hoarse. "You don't know what I did afterward. I donated millions. I helped rebuild the city." "No," she replies. "You donated after the criticism, after the videos went viral, after people saw your church's locked doors." A wave of "that's right" grows from the audience. The camera lights sweep across faces, doubt, disappointment, hurt. Osteen takes a deep breath, trying to stay calm, but his voice trembles. "I didn't do it for fame." Karoline responds instantly, without hesitation. "No one says you did it for fame. They say you did it to save it." The words split the room, half silent, half exhaling, as if releasing a city's pent-up anger. Karoline looks around, her voice softening, speaking to the audience now, not Osteen. "Faith isn't a ticket to heaven for one person. It's a door open to all. But when people knocked on your church's door, you slammed it shut. And that door, you called it safety, was actually fear." Osteen bows his head, sweat beading on his forehead. She speaks slowly, each word clear. "That was the day you lost something no one can buy back. Trust." The room falls silent. A middle-aged woman in the front row, tears streaming down her face, whispers, "I used to believe in you." The camera captures it perfectly. Osteen grips the microphone, his mouth opening, but no words coming out. Karoline lowers her hand, her eyes no longer sharp but heavy. "I'm not here to humiliate you," she says softly. "I'm here to ask, when you talk about compassion, do you remember the day people knocked on your church's door and no one answered?" Osteen closes his eyes briefly. No answer comes. A long moment passes, the light still shining on him, the room deathly quiet. The first crack has appeared, and nothing can cover it up. The hall remains silent after Karoline's mention of the locked doors during the storm. Osteen stands still, clutching the microphone, his eyes blinking rapidly as if trying to find his breath. But Karoline isn't done. She walks to the tech table, picks up a thin board, and holds it up before thousands. "And this," she says, her voice even and cold, "is a photo taken 2 days after you said the church was flooded." The light from the large screen behind her reveals the image. Joel Osteen, his wife, and 2 sons smiling brightly on a yacht in the Bahamas. The sea sparkles blue, wine glasses glinting in the sun. No trace of storms or tears. A wave of noise sweeps the room. Osteen pales, his hand gripping the microphone, trembling slightly. That was a pre-planned trip. I needed rest to keep serving," he says, trying to sound calm, but it feels like an excuse. Karoline's expression doesn't change. "You called on millions to donate to victims while you flew to a paradise resort. You told your followers to trust and give, then used their faith to fund your vacation." Osteen takes a deep breath, forcing his familiar gentle smile. "Young lady, you don't know I was working remotely the whole time." The room erupts, some laughing in disbelief. Karoline responds instantly. "God doesn't send emails, Pastor. He sends people." Applause breaks out, scattered at first, then swelling into a wave. Osteen closes his eyes, trying to stay composed, but his saintly smile vanishes. She continues, her voice not loud but clear. "You say you prayed for Houston's people, but while they waded through floodwaters, you soaked in a hotel pool. You say you bless, but where do your blessings come from? God, or a first-class ticket on a private jet?" A reporter aims a camera at Osteen's face. Sweat rolls down his forehead, glistening under the lights like a small crack in his perfect mask. He speaks, his voice trembling slightly. "I don't think I need to be judged here. I did what I believed was right." "Karoline, right for whom? For those who lost everything, or for your image?" She holds up another photo, Osteen among tourists, in a white shirt, holding a phone, while rescue workers called for volunteers. This is America's most powerful pastor serving remotely. The room gasps. Some stand and clap. A middle-aged woman shouts, "I gave money to you." Her words make Osteen falter. He raises a hand, as if to speak, but Karoline doesn't let him. "You can say anything about love and forgiveness," she says, her voice lower but stronger. "But look at this photo. This isn't sin, it's indifference. And that indifference let people die in the floods." A heavy silence falls. Osteen scans the crowd, seeking a kind glance, but finding none. He sets the microphone down, inhales, and says softly, "I know I'm not perfect." Karoline looks at him, her voice almost softening but unrelenting. "No one's perfect, Pastor. But when imperfect people use God's name to justify their mistakes, they stop being preachers. They become faith peddlers." The camera lights linger on Osteen's face, not the saintly smile, but a strange emptiness. He opens his mouth, but the words choke in his throat. Karoline steps toward the pulpit, the microphone glinting in her hand. "You say God blesses unity," she says, her voice low but echoing through the hall. "But unity can't be built on lies. And when people suffer, God isn't on a yacht, Pastor. He's in the flooded homes, with the people truly praying." A prolonged round of applause thunders through the room. Some stand, some cry. On stage, Osteen steps back, head bowed. The light reflects off his face, revealing an undeniable truth. The familiar smile is gone, replaced by fear. No one speaks. Karoline lowers the microphone, her eyes steady. In that brightly lit room, pulsing with heartbeats, it feels as though an icon has crumbled before everyone's eyes. And it all began with a single photo. The applause still echoes as Karoline returns to the table, holding a thick black folder. She doesn't speak immediately, just flips through the pages, the soft rustle loud enough to hush the room. The lights shine on Osteen's face. He's bowing his head, hands clasped tightly, trying to maintain calm but breathing unevenly. Karoline looks up, her voice low, steady, and cold as a blade. "Pastor Osteen, you said you donated millions to Hurricane Harvey victims. You said every dollar went to those in need. But I want to ask, why did Lakewood Church's charity transfer nearly $3 million to Osteen Trust, a real estate company owned by you and your wife?" Murmurs ripple like a wave. Osteen lifts his head, shaking it slightly. No, you're mistaken. That was a temporary advance. Repaid." Karoline doesn't wait for him to finish. She holds up a colored document, and the screen behind her magnifies it. This is a transfer receipt dated September 14th, 2017, 2 weeks after the storm. Recipient Osteen Real Estate Holdings. Purpose, infrastructure investment. "Can you explain why relief funds went to real estate?" Osteen grips the microphone so tightly, his knuckles turn white. "There's no evidence I misused funds," he says, his voice trembling slightly. Karoline leans forward, eyes piercing. "No evidence? The evidence is right here." She slaps the folder, a page falling onto the wooden podium, sliding to a stop at his feet. The screen's light highlights bold text. "Confidential settlement agreement. This is the non-disclosure agreement. You forced an accountant to sign when he discovered the fund transfer. You paid him $200,000 to stay silent, and when he refused, you fired him." The room erupts in angry murmurs. A man stands shouting, "I donated to that fund." The words make Osteen freeze, his eyes lowering, lips pressed tight. He tries to steady his voice. "That's just a misunderstanding. There's no such case as you describe." Karoline presses the remote. An internal email excerpt appears on the screen, bold text standing out. "Ensure everything is handled internally. Do not let the media find out. Sign NDA immediately. Sender, Executive Director, Lakewood Church." Recipient Joel Osteen. A gasp echoes. Then the room falls into absolute silence. Osteen stands rigid, no defense left. Karoline continues, her voice slow and clear. "You said faith is the most precious thing, but faith isn't an excuse to hide money. You used God's name to funnel funds to your private company, then silenced those who spoke out. That's not faith. That's commerce disguised." Osteen opens his mouth, but no sound comes. His hand trembles, the microphone buzzing faintly against his jacket. I didn't know about that," he says softly, almost a whisper. Karoline doesn't stop. She steps closer to the pulpit, her voice lowering, forceful. "Didn't know. A company in your name. receiving funds from the charity you called for, and you say you didn't know. Do you remember who signed the contract? On the screen, the signature appears. Joel Scott Osteen. A cry of, "Oh my God," escapes from the middle rows. The cameras sweep the room, capturing the stunned faces of the congregation. Osteen steps back, sweat beading on his forehead, his lips moving, but forming no words. Karoline lowers her voice, slowly. "You say you don't need fame, but you feared losing it so much, you paid for silence. You say you don't care about money, but every transfer leads to one place, your pocket." She pauses, her gaze lingering on him. "Pastor," she says softly, "true faith is tested in fire, not in a bank." The room is silent. Osteen bows his head, his hand trembling around the microphone. A woman in the front row clutches her chest, crying softly. Karoline sets the folder down, her voice calm but resounding. "I'm not here to humiliate you. I'm here to ask, do you still believe in the words you preach? When everything you have, money, power, fame, comes from people who thought you were God's man. Have you ever asked yourself, does God still believe in you?" Osteen lifts his head, his eyes bewildered. "You don't understand," he says softly. "I just wanted to keep the church growing, to keep serving." Karoline responds immediately. "A church doesn't grow on lies. People don't come to you for excuses. They come for God. But you've built walls to keep them out, then called it growth." A beam of stage light sweeps across the room, highlighting Osteen's tense face. Thousands of eyes fix on him, no longer with admiration, only silence and disappointment. Karoline steps back, lowering the microphone, her voice slow. "The test of faith isn't a sermon, it's the truth. And today, Pastor, your faith is being tested by fire. No one speaks, no one moves. The spotlight bears down on Osteen like a weight on his shoulders. He stands alone, surrounded by thousands of silent followers, and in that moment, he knows the sermon of his life has shifted to a chapter he can no longer control. Osteen stands frozen, sweat trickling down his temple. He grips the microphone tightly, then looks up, his voice choked. "I don't deny that I'm blessed by God. I'm wealthy, yes, because He wants me to have so I can give." The words fall into a leaden atmosphere. A few nod weakly, others exchange incredulous glances. Karoline crosses her arms, her eyes never leaving him. "Wealthy because God blessed you," she repeats, her voice even and cold. "Or wealthy because you've convinced people they need to pay to get His attention." Osteen forces a smile, stepping back slightly. "I only teach them to sow seeds to reap blessings." Karoline raises the microphone, her voice echoing through the hall. "And then you reap it all. You tell them to tithe to God, but you don't pay a dime in taxes to this country." The entire room turns to her. Osteen freezes, his smile fading. "I don't evade taxes," he says quickly. "Everything I do is legal." Karoline leans over the table, pulling out a bold printed document and holding it up. "This is the financial report of Osteen Trust, signed by you. Total personal income last year, $55 million. Taxes paid, 0. You say it's legal, and I agree. But legal doesn't mean right with God." Murmurs spread through the hall, then silence as she continues, her voice lowering. "You live off other people's faith money." A collective gasp rises from the audience, as if thousands realize something at once. Osteen opens his mouth, but finds no words, only a ragged breath. Karoline steps forward. "Houston's people pay taxes. Workers, teachers, veterans, they contribute every penny to keep this country running. And you, earning tens of millions a year from their faith, call it a blessing. Don't you see anything wrong with that?" Osteen shakes his head, his voice trembling. "I help them find hope. Money is just a tool. A tool for what?" She cuts in, her voice sharp as a blade. "To buy another mansion, to fly private jets to the Bahamas, or to pay hush money to staff." A loud gasp erupts, the room shaken. Osteen steps back, his face pale. "You're insulting me," he says softly. "You're attacking faith." Karoline responds, her voice icy. "I'm not attacking faith. I'm protecting it from your hands." She holds the papers toward him, each word deliberate. Faith wasn't born to feed extravagance. It was born to help people overcome suffering. But you've turned it into a personal check. A burst of applause erupts, louder than before. A few shout, "She's right." Osteen bows his head, his hands trembling. He forces a smile. You don't understand my responsibility. I have to support an organization, hundreds of employees. Karoline gives a faint smile, her gaze piercing his last defense. No, Pastor, you don't support anyone. They support you, with their hope, their tears, and their innocence. A woman in the audience sobs, her voice breaking. We trusted you. The words make Osteen falter, fear flashing in his eyes. Karoline continues, softer now but resonating with every listener. You say you're wealthy because God blessed you, but God never promised to make preachers millionaires. He only promised to be with the honest, and your wealth isn't proof of faith. It's evidence of abuse. Osteen shakes his head, stepping back, his voice breaking. I haven't abused anything. I've sacrificed my life for this mission. Sacrifice, she interrupts, stepping forward. Sacrifice isn't listed in an asset portfolio, Pastor. Sacrifice doesn't cost $55 million. The hall erupts in applause, but this time it's slow, heavy, as if drowning his excuses. Osteen looks at his trembling hands. The familiar TV smile is gone, replaced by emptiness. Karoline lowers the microphone slightly, her voice soft but cutting deep. Do you know the cruelest thing about false religion, Pastor? It's not the lies. It's making people believe those lies are blessings. The stage lights cast a cold glow on Osteen's face, turning his sweat into streaks of light. He tries to speak, but only a sigh escapes. The room falls silent. Karoline stands tall, her voice ringing out, resolute as a verdict. God doesn't demand tithes from the poor so preachers can sit on thrones. If you believe wealth proves faith, then look at suffering itself, for he chose poverty to save the world. Osteen closes his eyes. Heavy breaths echo through the room. Karoline sets the folder down, her final words, soft but far-reaching. That's true faith, Pastor, and today, you're failing your own test by fire. The slow applause fades, leaving a suffocating silence. The stage lights blaze down, casting a pale sheen on Osteen's face. He grips the microphone, takes a deep breath, his voice hoarse, lacking the confidence of the man who once spoke to millions. I just wanted to bring them hope. The words fall like a faint sigh, so weak some lean forward to hear. Karoline doesn't respond immediately. She stands still, watching him for a long moment, as if assessing whether the man before her still speaks the truth. Then she lifts the microphone, her voice low, slow, but resounding. Hope doesn't sell VIP tickets, Pastor. A few murmurs rise. Some gasp. Osteen looks up, his eyes weary. What are you talking about? Karoline gestures to the tech crew. The large screen lights up, displaying a dark green ticket with the words, Night of Blessings. Premium access $1,000. Below it, Lakewood Church's logo. She speaks clearly. This is a ticket to your Night of Blessings event. $1,000 per person. The first 5 rows, reserved for those who want direct blessings. Is that the hope you bring? The room erupts. Some cry out, oh my God. Osteen stammers. That's voluntary contributions. We're just raising funds for TV programs and community work. Karoline doesn't let him finish. No, that's commercializing faith. You turned prayer into a concert. You sold seats like you're selling glimpses of God's presence. Applause roars, mixed with shouts of, that's right. Osteen tries to stay calm, but his face stiffens. Every big church has operating costs, he says, his voice almost pleading. No one's forced to pay. Karoline steps forward. No one's forced. True, but you make them believe if they don't pay, they'll miss out on blessings. You turned faith into a transaction. You made them think they need to buy a ticket to hear God speak. She turns, pointing at the screen. This is a list of your so-called faith conferences. 50 events a year. Tickets from $500 to $2,000. You call for generosity, but the money doesn't go anywhere, except accounts tied to the Osteen Foundation. She pauses, her voice dropping. God doesn't charge to hear him speak. The room falls silent. An elderly man in the middle row bows his head, tears falling onto his clasped hands. Osteen lowers the microphone, his shoulders slumping, trembling slightly. In the cold light, he's no longer the powerful pastor, but a man cornered. I never meant to hurt anyone, he says softly. I just wanted to give them faith. This world has too much pain. I just wanted to make them feel better. Karoline looks at him, her eyes no longer sharp, but steady. She speaks softly, but her words echo. No one disputes bringing faith. The problem is, you don't bring it. You sell it. Osteen looks up, his eyes wet. If I don't raise funds, how can I sustain the programs, the team, the charity work? By being honest, Karoline replies, unflinching. By stopping the pricing of prayers. A young woman stands, her voice trembling. I attended a night of blessings. I sat in the back row. You didn't look at us once. The words choke the room. Karoline nods to the woman, then turns to Osteen. That's the problem, Pastor. You talk about light, but you only shine it on those who can pay to be seen. Osteen stands still, his eyes red, gripping the microphone. You don't understand, he says, his voice breaking. I love them. I really love them. Maybe, Karoline says slowly, but love doesn't mean exploitation. You can't love and charge for that love. No one moves. A man in the back bows his head in prayer. The air is thick, heartbeats audible. Osteen lowers his head, his gaze lost in the void. All the sermons, ceremonies, lights, and golden stages, suddenly hollow. Karoline steps forward, her voice dropping to a near whisper but echoing. People come to God for hope, but they leave your church with a bill. That's not a blessing, it's a transaction. Osteen says no more. He bows his head deeply, the room silent, as if drained of air. In the pale light, he stands small, mute among the crowd, and all understand that for the first time in years, Joel Osteen has no words to defend himself. The air in the hall thickens as Osteen bows his head, silent before the accusations. Karoline steps back slightly, taking a deep breath as if preparing for the final blow. Her voice rings out, slow and clear.
End.
Pastor, what I've said so far is just the surface. The deeper part you've tried to hide. She places her hand on the folder, a red-stamped confidential page visible. The large screen behind her lights up, displaying the text audio evidence, internal accounting recording. This, she says, is the voice of someone who kept the books for Lakewood Church, David Lang. He worked for you for nearly a decade, until he was forced out after discovering altered financial reports. And before he was made to sign a non-disclosure agreement, he recorded an entire conversation in your office. Murmurs spread quickly. Osteen looks up, his face pale, mouth slightly open as if to stop her. That's slander, he shouts, his voice high and breaking through the microphone. There's no such person, no such recording. But Karoline raises her hand, needing no further words. A slight nod, and sound plays from the speakers. A faint crackle of a recorder, then a weary, trembling male voice. I had to adjust the books at their request. Unjustified expenses, funds funneled to subsidiaries, all made to look clean. When I asked, they said, we can't let the public misunderstand. If they know, it's over. The packed hall freezes. Osteen stands rooted, his hand gripping the microphone, knuckles white. He shouts, his voice hoarse. That's edited. It's a setup. But Karoline doesn't look at him. She raises her hand again. Another voice plays, clear and unmistakably familiar, sending chills through many. Osteen's voice, low and slow, unmistakable. Don't let them know, David. They'll misunderstand. They don't realize keeping the image matters more than transparency. A roar erupts, like a breaking wave. Some stand, others cover their mouths. Reporters in the back rows raise cameras. The camera zooms in, capturing Osteen's ashen face, sweat drenching his forehead, eyes wide with panic. No, he screams, his voice cracking. I don't remember saying that. Anyone could fake my voice. Karoline turns, her voice cold and calm. Strange, because this recording includes your phone ringing mid-sentence. The same ringtone you still use. And the timing, 3:15 p.m., September 14th, 2017, matches the transfer you signed. Osteen looks around, his eyes desperately seeking an ally in the sea of people, but all he finds is heavy silence. Some shake their heads, others look down. Karoline steps forward, the screen's light reflecting on her face, cold and sharp as steel. You once said, faith needs protection from doubt, but sometimes, doubt is what saves faith from abuse. Osteen trembles, his voice faltering. I didn't want them to misunderstand the purpose. I was afraid things would be distorted. Karoline steps closer, eyes locked on him, and to avoid distortion, you distorted the truth. He bows his head, his lips moving soundlessly. She doesn't stop. For 2 years, you released dozens of financial reports, none matching the internal ones. Total discrepancy. Over $7 million. Care to explain, Pastor? Osteen shakes his head, whispering, I don't know about those numbers. Don't know. She presses, holding the report high. Your signature is on every page. A roar rises. A man in the front row shouts, Read it again. And Karoline reads, No need to raise her voice. Each word heavy as a hammer. Signed Joel Scott Osteen, position founder and trustee. Osteen tries to speak, but the microphone buzzes harshly. He sets it down, his hands shaking violently. His figure seems to shrink in the light. Karoline steps toward him, her gaze no longer accusing, but understanding yet firm. You once said, in a sermon, that God's light shines everywhere, even in darkness. Today, that light is shining on you, not to punish, but to strip away the mask you've placed over the truth. A long silence, only the relentless click of cameras. Osteen bows his head, takes a breath, and whispers, I'm not perfect. I was just trying to protect my mission. Karoline looks at him, her response soft but resolute. A mission can't be protected with lies. Faith doesn't need a protector. Faith needs an honest man. The stage lights blaze down. The room is silent. No one claps. No one speaks. In that moment, it feels like a sacred, strange ritual. A powerful pastor stripped of his holy cloak before his own altar of faith. Karoline lowers her hand, her voice dropping to a near whisper, but echoing everywhere. You once said, Don't let them know. They'll misunderstand. But today, Pastor, they know. And for the first time, they understand correctly. The cameras pan the room. Hundreds of faces, angry, disappointed, grieving, appear in the light. At the center, Joel Osteen sits with his head bowed, hands limp, staring at the polished floor. No more halo, no more false faith, just a man facing the truth he once feared. As Karoline's voice lingers, Osteen looks up, the lights reflecting off his sweat-drenched face. He lifts the microphone, trying to steady his breath. His voice trembles but strives for authority. Oh, I serve God. You have no right to judge me. Everything I do is for him. The words echo through the vast hall, but, instead of the familiar applause, they're swallowed by a sea of silence. Karoline stands still, hands at her sides, looking at him with a calm, cold gaze, as if hearing a confession. You serve God, she repeats slowly, stepping forward, her voice low, each word clear. No, Pastor, you serve your image. Osteen freezes. The camera lights pan, capturing his pale face, lips pressed tight. Karoline leans over the table, picks up a magazine cover, and holds it high before thousands. It shows Osteen smiling brightly with bold text below. Forbes, the billionaire preacher. The screen magnifies it instantly. She holds the cover toward him, her voice resounding. This is the man who serves God, a man on a finance magazine, not for his compassion, but for a fortune surpassing those you call material sinners. Osteen shakes his head, forcing a smile. The media always exaggerates. I can't control how they write about me. Karoline speaks deliberately. No one forced them to write. You invited them. You showed off your estate. Let them photograph your gold-plated office. You say I'm just God's tool, but everything you do polishes the name Joel Osteen. A few gasps rise, then murmurs spread. She continues. You say God blesses wealth, but where does the Bible say the shepherd needs silk suits, sports cars, or 10-bedroom mansions? God doesn't need a silk-clad shepherd, Pastor. He needs a true heart, not an expensive robe. Applause erupts, growing into a wave. Amen. Someone shouts from the middle rows. Osteen grips the microphone, his hand visibly shaking. He speaks softly, almost pleading. You don't understand. I have to appear this way to spread faith. If I lived poorly, who would listen to me? Karoline smiles faintly, but there's no joy in it. If people only listen because of the watch you wear, they're no longer hearing God. Thunderous applause rises. A group in the back stands, raising phones to record. Osteen looks around, his gaze lost. Don't do this, he says, his voice choked. I'm not the villain. I just want people to be happy. Karoline tilts her head. By making them poorer? By taking the last dollar from a mother who believes she's buying a miracle? The murmurs turn into a wave of sound echoing through the room. A middle-aged man stands, his voice breaking. I sent you money for 3 years. I trusted you. You said it was a seed for blessings. But my family's still drowning in debt. Osteen panics. I didn't promise anything. I only spoke of hope. Karoline turns, her voice hardening like steel. No, you sold hope like tickets to a show. You planted seeds in their wallets and reaped wealth for yourself. The first shout rises from a corner of the hall. Tell the truth. Another joins, then an entire row. Within seconds, the chant thunders everywhere. Tell the truth. Tell the truth. Hundreds, then thousands, shouting in unison, applause mixing with angry cries, shaking the floor. Osteen steps back, his face pale. He raises a hand, trying to speak, but the microphone slips from his grasp, hitting the floor with a dry thud that echoes through the hall. He bends to pick it up, his trembling hands fumbling as if grasping for his last shred of honor. When he looks up, the stage lights shine directly into his tear-glistening eyes. He speaks softly, his voice quivering like the wind. I'm not a liar. I'm just trying to keep faith alive. Karoline stands still, her gaze calm but heavy. Faith doesn't die, Pastor. Only those who misuse it die in their own light. Applause erupts, not in anger, but in empathy. People stand, no longer shouting, just watching him. A gaze no longer reverent, but awakened. The cameras pan the room. Faces once joyful from his sermons now show pain. The lights sweep the front row, catching an elderly woman shaking her head, tears streaming. She whispers, "We just wanted to hear about God, not about you." Osteen lowers his eyes, silent. The microphone in his hand slips, emitting a faint squeal. The chant, "Tell the truth," lingers, like drumbeats striking the void in his chest. Karoline steps back, the light reflecting on her face, both cold and merciful. In that moment, the truth dawns, one they dared not admit for years. Joel Osteen is no longer a symbol of faith. He's just a man clinging to his own illusion. And in that awakening crowd, that image crumbles by the second. The chant, "Tell the truth," still echoes as Karoline steps back, lowering the microphone. The air in the room is so thick, it feels like it could be cut with a knife. Osteen remains, trembling, microphone in hand, the white lights casting every wrinkle on his face into sharp relief. Karoline watches him for a long moment, then inhales, her voice slowing, no longer sharp but low, tinged with sorrow. "There's a story I think you need to hear, Pastor." The room falls silent. The cameras stop. She pulls an old, yellowed envelope from the folder, its handwritten text scrawled but legible. To Pastor Joel Osteen, Lakewood Church, Houston. She holds it up, her voice gentle. This is a letter from an 8-year-old girl named Megan Turner from Ohio. She had terminal leukemia. In her final days, Megan didn't wish for toys or gifts. She only wanted Pastor Joel Osteen to pray for her. A heavy breath echoes somewhere in the room. Osteen freezes, eyes closing, as if the name sounds familiar. Karoline continues, her voice lowering. Megan sent this letter 4 years ago. Her mother said she called, emailed, and messaged Lakewood's office. They promised to pass it on to you, but no one responded. No one called back. And 2 weeks later, Megan passed away. The air in the hall freezes. Some in the audience cover their mouths. Others bow their heads. Karoline opens the envelope, pulling out a small sheet of paper. Childish, scrawled handwriting. Trembling lines mark the page. She looks down, her voice quivering slightly but clear. "Dear Pastor Osteen, my name is Megan. I'm 8 years old. The doctors say I might go to heaven soon. Mommy says you can talk to God. Can you please ask him if I'll still have hair in heaven? I want to meet Jesus looking pretty. Thank you for making people smile. Love, Megan." The room feels locked in a cold gust. Sobs rise from the front row. Karoline lowers the letter, her eyes slightly wet but her voice steady.
"People don't need prayers through email.
"Pastor, they need a real heart." A middle-aged woman sobs, covering her mouth, tears streaming. Osteen stands still, eyes shut tight, his hand trembling around the microphone. She looks at him, her voice softening. "That little girl believed you could talk to God. She trusted you, believed one prayer from you would make God listen. But all she got was silence." Osteen doesn't open his eyes. He only whispers, his voice hoarse. "I didn't know about that letter. I really didn't." Karoline nods slightly, not mocking but acknowledging. "Maybe you didn't, but your office did. And sadly for Megan, there was no difference between you and your office. To her, you were God's representative. And when you didn't answer, God was silent too. The hall is deathly quiet, only breaths, sniffles, and the faint click of cameras. Karoline steps forward, her voice still soft, but piercing like a knife. Pastor, you say you bring hope to people, but for an 8-year-old girl about to die, that hope never came. She left this world thinking God was too busy to hear her, because his representative had no time to read her letter. Osteen trembles, opening his eyes. They're red, his voice choked. I pray for thousands every day. I can't know every individual. Karoline nods slightly. True, you can't, but God can. And you were supposed to be the bridge, not the wall. An elderly man stands in the back, his voice rough but firm. That girl trusted you, and you made God silent in her eyes. Others nod quietly. A woman clutches her Bible, sobbing uncontrollably. Karoline places the letter on the podium, her hands trembling slightly. You once said faith is the connection between soul and love, but love can't exist if people only see money, fame, and stage lights. True love isn't in sermons, it's in how you answer a letter. Osteen looks up, his lips trembling, but no words come. He stares at the letter as if it's glowing on the stage. Karoline meets his gaze, her voice softening, no longer harsh. I believe God can forgive you, but people like Megan, they don't have time to wait for apologies. A long silence stretches. Sobs blend with the faint hum of the microphone. Osteen closes his eyes, his hand loosening, the microphone slipping and hitting the floor with a soft clack. Karoline bends to pick up the letter, folding it carefully, and places it before him. You say you want to bring them hope, she says, her voice hoarse. Then start here. With the letter you missed, Osteen doesn't answer. He bows his head deeply, his shoulders trembling in silence. The room is still. No one dares speak. No one claps. The stage lights dim, leaving 2 figures, a young woman with a letter and a pastor bowed before an invisible sin. In that moment, all of America seems to understand no sermon is stronger than a forgotten letter. The hall remains silent after Karoline places Megan's letter on the podium. Osteen bows his head, hands clasped, his face pale under the white lights. Soft sobs from the audience linger, then fade like a quiet breeze. Karoline watches him for a long moment, then speaks, her voice low and firm. Pastor, you say you bring hope to them, but after all this, I have to ask again. Are you sure what you bring is truly hope, or just a commodity packaged in sermons? Osteen slowly lifts his head. His eyes are red, his voice hoarse, as if clinging to his last shred of authority. You don't understand. You're attacking faith. All you're doing today is confusing those who believe in God. Karoline doesn't react immediately. She stands still for a few seconds, then tilts her head, her gaze sharp but not hateful. No, she replies slowly. I'm not attacking faith. I'm protecting it from you. A low murmur ripples through the room, like a silent shock wave. Osteen presses his lips, trying to stay calm. I only say what God wants people to hear. I never force anyone to believe me. Karoline moves the microphone closer, her voice lowering, each word heavy, not forcing, true. But you know how to make people believe that if they don't follow you, they're going against God's will. You've turned trust into a rope around the necks of the vulnerable. Osteen swallows hard, his shoulders trembling slightly. I only teach them that God rewards the diligent, those with strong faith. Karoline cuts in, her voice now strong and cold as metal. Then answer me one thing, Pastor. What is success to you? A mansion, a luxury car, a nationally broadcast show, or faith twisted to feed your image? The question hits the room like a bullet, piercing the thick air. Osteen opens his mouth, but no sound comes. His eyes blink rapidly, staring at the polished wooden floor, where his reflection, small, distorted, stares back. The room holds its breath, waiting. Karoline doesn't relent. She steps forward, her voice low but sharp. You once said, God rewards success. So how does God define success? Do you dare tell the poor out there they're not loved by God because they haven't succeeded by your standards? A middle-aged man in the middle row lets out a hoarse, Amen. Oh, that's right, echoes from the back. Osteen looks around, stepping back slightly, his lips trembling. I didn't say that. I just want them to know God doesn't want us to live in lack. Karoline's lips curl slightly, her gaze sharper than a knife. No, God doesn't want them in lack, but he also doesn't want a pastor living in luxury off their tears. How many times did you preach selflessness, then drive a Ferrari to church? How many times did you talk humility, then appear on TV with a gleaming smile under golden lights among $1,000 VIP seats? Osteen bows his head, taking a sharp breath. You're insulting me, he says softly, his voice hoarse, and insulting the millions who love me. Karoline responds instantly, unwavering. No, I'm telling the truth they haven't dared face. Truth doesn't insult. It only hurts those who live off lies. A woman in the audience sobs. Another stands, clutching her Bible. The cameras hum, capturing Osteen gripping the microphone, his eyes filled with panic. Karoline steps closer, her voice low but clear. I don't want to see you fall, Pastor, but you've used God as a mirror for your ego. You call it the light of faith, but it's just stage lighting. When the lights go out, are you still God's man or just a brand without an audience? Murmurs mix with gasps. Osteen turns away, his lips moving, but his voice too weak for the microphone to catch. Karoline pauses, watching him for a moment, then speaks slowly. God doesn't need a representative with TV shows, copyrights, or financial funds. He just needs someone who kneels and speaks the truth. Osteen opens his eyes, meeting her gaze, his eyes red and weary. I've dedicated my life to faith, he says, his voice trembling. I did everything for them. I don't want them to lose hope. Karoline replies softly, each word cutting through the air. But you forgot that when hope is exploited, it's no longer light. It becomes the shadow of ambition. And that shadow, Pastor, is falling over those who trusted you. The hall falls eerily silent. The stage lights shine down, casting two contrasting figures, a trembling man in darkness and a woman standing tall in the light. The cameras pan slowly, capturing Osteen bowing his head deeply, his hand gripping the microphone like a last grasp at authority. Karoline takes a deep breath, her voice low but warm, like the closing of a trial. I don't want to destroy you, Pastor. I just want you to see what you've forgotten, that faith doesn't need protecting. It just needs people to stop exploiting it. No one claps, no one shouts. All watch. The man who was once an icon stands in the pale light, breathing heavily, speechless. In that moment, the silence becomes the verdict. And as the stage lights dim, it dawns. This questioning isn't just about Joel Osteen. It's about everyone who's used God's name to mask their greed. The stage lights lower, leaving two figures facing each other in a vast void. No more camera clicks, no more murmurs, just the sound of breathing. Osteen stands still, head slightly bowed, the microphone trembling in his hand. After a long silence, he looks up, his voice hoarse and choked, so weak some think he might collapse. Maybe I was wrong. The room holds its breath. Karoline frowns slightly, saying nothing. He continues, his voice low but sincere. But you don't understand. You don't know what it's like to carry the weight of the light. The words fall, soft but contradictory. His whole life he spoke of light, God's light, faith's light, success's light. But now, it sounds like a bitter confession. Karoline watches him, her gaze no longer sharp but thoughtful. She speaks softly, her voice like a breath. True light doesn't need a switch, Pastor. A sigh escapes from the front row. Osteen bows his head, hands gripping the microphone, his shoulders trembling. His voice breaks, no longer commanding the crowd. I've lived in the spotlight too long. I don't know what's real light anymore. What's the light they built for me? Every day, I have to smile, be strong, be perfect, because if I don't, the world will call me a fraud. You think I don't know. I know it all, but I'm afraid. The word afraid rasps out, silencing the room. Karoline's eyes flicker. What are you afraid of? She asks, her voice so soft yet echoing through the hall. Osteen takes a deep breath, his lips trembling. I'm afraid of losing everything. The words pierce the room like a knife. No one moves. Every lens focuses on him. Karoline steps closer, her gaze softening. What you fear losing isn't wealth, she says slowly, but the trust of those who listen, because once they stop believing, the false light goes out. Osteen looks at her, his eyes filled with pain. You don't understand, he says, his voice choked. I started with true faith. I wanted to save people, bring God to every home, but then they started worshiping me. I said 1, they believed 10. I preached a sermon, and money poured in like waves. I couldn't stop. I became an icon before I realized I'd lost my soul. The room is deathly silent. Some bow their heads. A woman wipes tears. Karoline doesn't attack. She asks softly, "And now, do you see God anywhere, Pastor?" Osteen looks up, his eyes cloudy and sunken. "No," he says, his voice a faint confession. "He's been silent for a long time. I call, but I hear nothing. Maybe he doesn't want to talk to me anymore." He pauses, taking a long breath. "Do you know what that feels like? When people still call your name, cheer for you, but God turns away." Karoline looks at him, a flicker of compassion in her eyes. "No one makes God turn away, Pastor. Only people step out of the light." Osteen bows his head, breathing heavily. His voice dissolves into the air. "I don't know how to go back. I'm afraid if I confess, everything will collapse. I'm afraid of losing them, the people who still believe I'm their guide." Karoline shakes her head. They don't need a guide anymore. They need someone real, someone who knows they're wrong, but has the courage to say it. Osteen looks up, lips trembling. "Do you think they'll forgive me?" She replies softly, "Not them, but God." Forgiveness doesn't come from the crowd. It comes from honesty. The cameras hum, capturing Osteen's eyes, teary, weary, alone. He murmurs, as if to himself, "I forgot that for too long. I taught them to believe, but I don't know how to believe anymore." Karoline nods, her voice warm but firm. "And that's when true faith begins, when you stop believing in yourself, but still dare to seek him." Osteen presses his lips, tears falling silently. The room is still. People watch, not in anger, not in cheers, just silence, a strange silence, heavy but tinged with forgiveness. Karoline stands still, neither advancing nor retreating. She speaks slowly, for the whole hall. "Sometimes, God doesn't shine his light to make us glow brighter. He shines it to show us the cracks within ourselves." Osteen looks up, his eyes vacant, lips trembling. "Maybe you're right." He glances around, seeing thousands watching him, their faces a mix of anger, pity, and disappointment. He blurts out, almost uncontrollably, "I don't want to pretend anymore." The words echo, trembling, but chillingly real. Karoline nods slightly, her voice a response for the entire hall. "That's good, because God doesn't save the perfect. He only saves those who know they need saving." Osteen stands frozen, the microphone slipping from his hand, the metallic clank on the floor, echoing in the silent air. The entire hall is speechless. Karoline bows her head, eyes lowered, as if in silent prayer. In that moment, their roles reverse. Osteen, once the preacher, is now preached to. Karoline, once the accuser, now speaks with mercy. The stage lights dim, leaving only two figures in the thick atmosphere. One has lost everything, and the other has given him back what he long forgot. Truth. The hall is deathly quiet. No more hatred, only silence. The rare sound that emerges when people truly begin to see themselves again. The light softens, a small halo surrounding the two. Osteen keeps his head bowed, shoulders trembling, his heavy breaths echoing through the microphone. The hall remains still, as if this will be the end, a rare moment of repentance. But Karoline hasn't lowered the microphone. She stands silent for a few seconds, then speaks in a low, resolute voice, no longer angry, only clear with justice. "Pastor," she begins, "you said you fear losing everything, but some things aren't lost because of truth, only because of lies. And before this night ends, there's one last thing I must let you and America know." She opens a small bag beside her, pulling out a silver USB drive. The hall's eyes fix on her, whispers rising like wind. Osteen lifts his head, his face paling, eyes frantic. "What is that?" he asks softly, his voice hoarse. Karoline holds it up, the stage lights glinting off it. "This," she says clearly, "is internal emails between you and your financial advisor, extracted from Lakewood's system last week, verified by federal auditors." Osteen frowns, shaking his head, his voice trembling. "You can't. You don't have the right to take those." Karoline remains calm. "I don't need the right. I have the responsibility. Because what's in here isn't just about money. It's about the true nature of the commercial faith you've built." She signals the tech crew. The large screen lights up, displaying an email with the subject "Pricing Adjustment for VIP Donors. Confidential." The sender's name is clear, Joel.Osteen@lakewoodministries.org. Karoline reads, her voice even and cold. Increase VIP ticket price for the next night of blessings. They will think it's a deeper level of devotion, a higher offering, not a price hike. Joel S. Osteen. A roar erupts like thunder. Hundreds cry out, "Oh my God, no way." Osteen stands frozen, his lips trembling, his hand gripping the microphone until his knuckles turn white. Karoline pauses for a few seconds, letting the room settle, then continues, her voice low but sharp as a knife. You called raising ticket prices a higher offering. You made them believe they were getting closer to God when they were only getting closer to your bank account. Osteen opens his mouth, his voice faint as a breath. I don't remember writing that email. Karoline looks straight at him, unblinking. I remember for you, and so will the nation. The words fall like a death knell for the great pastor, once revered. Applause starts, one person, then two, then the entire hall stands. The clapping rolls in waves like thunder, drowning out sobs and sighs. Some hold up Bibles, tears falling, unclear if from anger or liberation. Osteen staggers, clutching the podium. The lights highlight every tense line on his face. No, he says weakly, almost pleading. You don't understand. I just wanted to keep the program going. They wanted to feel special. I didn't force anyone. Karoline, not angry, only looks at him, her voice gentle but cold. You didn't need to force anyone, Pastor. You just had to say it pleased God, and they gave willingly. That's your real power, and your deepest sin. She pauses, scanning the hall, her voice steady. They trusted you because you spoke in God's name. But God doesn't need a gatekeeper charging entry to heaven. Applause roars again, stronger, like waves. People stand, some shouting speak truth, others standing silently, hands clasped. The cameras pan, capturing tear-streaked faces, no longer an audience, but witnesses to a public cleansing of faith. Osteen bows his head, his voice breaking. You don't know my pressure. You don't know what I hear every night, what I read, the threats, the criticism. Karoline responds instantly, soft but firm. I know, because those people out there hear it too. They're mocked for believing in God, called foolish for giving, yet they still believe. They don't have mansions to hide in, no PR to shield them. They only have faith, and you exploited it. Osteen looks up, eyes wet. I didn't want it to end like this, he says softly. Karoline nods slightly, her voice low. No one does. But sometimes, truth is the only way to start again. She looks straight at him, the light reflecting in her clear, steel-like eyes. You once said, faith brings freedom. True, but only when it's not sold to the highest bidder. Osteen doesn't reply. He stands still, eyes distant, lost in his own memories. Karoline turns to the hall, her voice clear and firm like a proclamation. Today, we're not just witnessing one man's fall, but the awakening of millions who knelt before those who claimed faith. Truth doesn't come from a pulpit. It comes from a heart no longer afraid. Applause erupts again, fierce, shaking the ceiling. The cameras pan slowly, capturing Osteen standing alone in the light, his face blurred with tears and light. A chapter of illusion closes, and Karoline stands there, not proud, not smug, just calm, like someone who's done what needed doing. Amid the thunderous applause, Osteen drops the microphone, his hands falling limp. The entire hall stands, not to cheer one person, but to applaud the truth. The thunderous applause lingers as Karoline slowly steps to the center of the stage. Osteen remains, head bowed, hands limp, his heavy, uneven breaths audible. The lights from above make his figure tremble in the pale glow. She stops opposite him, her voice soft but far-reaching, each word clear, stronger than ever. You said God blesses unity, she begins, her voice low and resolute. But he doesn't want us united in lies. The words fall like a verdict. The hall goes silent. Those who chanted, tell the truth now, stand watching, mesmerized by the strange stillness. Karoline continues, her voice slower, carrying the breath of a prayer. Unity can't be built on lies. There can't be love if faith is bought and sold. There can't be faith if the preacher forgets God never needed a representative. Osteen lifts his head, eyes wet. I just wanted them to love me, he says, his voice breaking, each word choking in his throat. I spent my life talking about love, but now I only see hate. They call me a liar, a profiteer, I didn't want it to end like this. Karoline looks at him, her eyes softening, no longer accusing but witnessing a broken soul. She steps closer, her voice soft but powerful. If you want to be loved, be honest, for God only loves the truth. A wave of emotion sweeps the hall. Many bow their heads, some hold hands, others cry silently. The stage lights shine brightly on the two, vivid in the dim space. Two figures, one bowed in tears, one standing in light, form a living religious tableau. Karoline scans the hall, then raises the Bible in her hand. The light reflects off its worn leather cover, and she speaks loudly, her voice ringing through the room like church bells. A true shepherd doesn't build temples with the money of the hungry. A true preacher doesn't sell prayers, and true faith doesn't need a stage to shine. A collective gasp rises from hundreds. An elderly woman stands, tears streaming, whispering, "Amen." From the back rows, more amens follow, soft, then spreading like a quiet hymn. Osteen looks at her, his eyes cloudy, his voice hoarse. "You're right. I forgot that. I was so busy building a church. I forgot the real church lies in people's hearts." He bows his head, hands trembling, then suddenly kneels on the stage. Murmurs ripple. Some reporters raise cameras, but none snap. No one wants to break the moment. He speaks, his voice so soft it's barely audible. "I've gone too far. I loved my image more than I loved God. I was afraid, and I lied to keep the false light around me." Karoline doesn't approach, doesn't help him up. She only looks, her eyes no longer steel but a mirror. "No one can hold light with dusty hands," she says softly. "But when you dare let it go, God will show you a new path." Osteen lifts his head slightly, looking at her. Then the hall. "Will they forgive me?" he asks, his voice breaking. Karoline shakes her head. "Not them, Pastor. You don't need forgiveness from the crowd. You only need to seek God's forgiveness." The cameras hum again, but no hurried clicks, no flashing lights. Everyone stands still, watching the strange scene. The man who once ruled the pulpit of millions, now kneeling in tears, stripped of title, stripped of power. Karoline lowers the Bible, her voice softening. "God doesn't need us to be perfect, Pastor. He only needs us to be honest. You once preached that God's light is everywhere, but light can't reach someone hiding in their own shadow." Osteen chokes back a sob, hands clasped, murmuring a prayer. The hall bows, no one daring to speak. Some sob, some kneel with him. No one commands it, but the room seems to bow together in that moment. The stage lights shift from white to gold, bathing the two like a baptism. Karoline closes her eyes, saying softly, "May God restore what you've lost. Not money, not fame, but faith." A soft wave of applause rises, not fierce, not frenzied, like a collective prayer. Osteen remains kneeling, tears streaming. Karoline stands still, looking down at him, no longer an opponent, no longer an accuser, but a witness to redemption. She takes a deep breath, her final words clear and strong. "God blesses those who dare face the truth, for only the truth sets us free." The light pours down, two figures, one kneeling, one standing, merge in the glow. No more camera clicks, no more shouts, only the soft sound of sobs blending with slow applause. The entire hall, thousands, understands. This is no longer a political or religious clash. This is faith's judgment, where true light finally pierces the false halo, and everyone, including Joel Osteen, sees themselves within it. The pale golden light still shines on the wooden stage where Joel Osteen kneels. A long silence stretches. No one moves. The camera's hum fades, then stops. Osteen looks up, eyes red, tears streaming down his cheeks. He glances around. Thousands, minutes ago, chanting, now silently watching. No more reverence, no more anger, just the gaze of those awakened, waiting for him to do what they've never seen, step down from his throne and accept the truth. Osteen trembles as he stands. The microphone lies on the floor, reflecting the light like a shattered mirror. He stares at it, then bends slowly, picking it up. The hall remains still. He brings the microphone to his lips, lips trembling, voice hoarse. "I don't know what I can do to fix this, but I'll try. I'm sorry." A faint wave of sound ripples through the crowd, not applause, but soft gasps, relieved sighs. Osteen looks around, one last time, his eyes meeting Karoline's at the stage's edge, her gaze no longer cold, but clear, calm. He nods slightly, then sets the microphone back down. "I've said enough," he whispers, then turns. He leaves the stage slowly, each step heavy, dragging years of glamour behind him. As his figure disappears behind the black curtain, the hall remains still. No cheers of victory, no mocking laughter, only silence, the silence after a storm, where hearts still echo. Karoline stands alone on the stage. She doesn't look after him, only stands silent. The lights dim, bathing her face, no longer harsh. She lifts the microphone, her hand gentle, as if holding something sacred. Her voice is low, even, blending with the thick air. "Faith doesn't need applause," she says softly, "only the courage to face the truth." The words drift out, light but clear, like a breeze through a sleeping room. Some nod, some wipe tears. Karoline looks up at the audience, not with pride, but with quiet compassion. "We don't need saints," she says. "We need real people, and sometimes the truth hurts more than a sermon." The cameras zoom in, capturing her face. Sweat and tears mingle, but in the light, it's not the face of a victor, but a witness. She raises the Bible, hands high, her voice soft, but filling the hall. "Let the truth set you free." The English words ring through the silent space, like a prayer, a conclusion, and a beginning. The entire hall stands. No one chants, no one claps, all bow their heads. Some pray, some hold the hand beside them. In that moment, Karoline and Osteen are no longer adversaries. All that remains is one thing amid the wreckage of fame and lies: true faith. The hall's background noise fades. Lights dim, leaving a single beam on the Bible in her hands. She takes a deep breath, shoulders relaxing, her voice whispering one last time. "We believe too long in beautiful words, forgetting that truth doesn't need to be beautiful. It just needs to be real." From the audience, an elderly man steps forward, holding his trembling wife's hand, saying softly, "Finally, I feel God here again." A young woman hugs her child, tears falling on the child's shoulder. In the back, some reporters lower their cameras, taking no more shots. They know no photo can capture this sacred moment. Karoline lowers the Bible, a faint smile, tired but peaceful. She steps off the podium, her shoes clicking softly on the wood, steady like a heartbeat calming after a storm. Behind her, the lights fade, the screen glowing with simple white text. "Truth is not against faith. It is the proof of it." Then all fades to darkness. No more voices, no more sounds, only a profound silence. But in that silence, something is reborn, like a true light, not from lamps, not from the stage, but from the hearts of people learning to believe again. And so, after the storm of lies, only silence remains, not of fear, but of awakening. Thank you for following to the end, where truth and faith meet in the light. Please subscribe to the channel to continue exploring stories that dare to speak truth, dare to stand up, and we'll see you in the next video.